All right. We're going to do our quick panel with some of our amazing green champions. So I'm going to welcome all to the stage. Please join me in welcoming Paulina López, Executive Director of the Duwamish River Community Coalition. Ben Feldman, Policy Director of the Farmers Market Coalition. Who do I have next over there? Lauren Ferree, Environmentalist and Creator. And Savitha Reddy Pathi, Deputy Director of Climate Solutions. Welcome all to the stage. So you probably all know at this point, but just to mention again, we have an amazing community of green champions that we've put together by our amazing colleague over there, Erin Connolly, shout out over there, has helped to curate this amazing group of people that are working climate across the globe, in different areas, building communities. Anybody else out there, green champion, shout. I see one in front right over here. There we go. Everybody back? Anybody in the back over there? All right. I see one over there. But we have just had the best community, and they've been amazing over the past couple of days. So thank you all, and thank you for joining us here. I just wanted to start with a quick introduction of who you all are and the work and kind of your priorities. Why don't we start down with you, Savitha?
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm very tempted to sing some karaoke following that band. So I'm Savitha Reddy Pathi. I'm the Deputy Director of Climate Solutions, and I'm also on the fundraising team for No on 2117, which is a ballot initiative here in Washington State that we are going to resoundingly defeat on November 5th, and you'll be hearing more about that in my remarks, and the governor spoke about it yesterday, too. So those are some of my priorities this year.
Hi everyone, I'm Lauren Bash. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a content creator, a storyteller, and a climate activist in Los Angeles. And my main focus within the climate movement is ocean conservation with my work with the Surfrider Foundation.
Hey everybody, my name is Ben Feldman. I used to work at the Farmers Market Coalition as our executive director. These days my focus there is on policy work, and I continue to work as a consultant with other nonprofits around mostly the food and agricultural space.
I'm also just going to say the Day In, Day Out Music Festival is kicking off shortly, as you can hear. So we're going to have probably some sound checks going on, so speak very loud.
Good morning, everyone. Paulina López. I'm the Executive Director of the Duwamish River Community Coalition, which is an environmental justice community-based organization in the Duwamish Valley, which has been protecting the only river that Seattle has, the Duwamish River. And I welcome you all to the Duwamish and Coast Salish people here in Seattle, for those who are coming from all the parts of the United States.
Amazing. Thank you. Woo. And thank you all for all of your amazing work. So I want to start with, how did you get into climate activism and working in climate, and just understanding a little bit more about your personal story and what really motivated you to start to take action? We'll start down with you again, Savitha.
For me, it really was just the values that my parents raised me with. I'm an immigrant to the United States, and it was just something that we grew up with in my household. And then my first job out of college was during the Kyoto Protocol. I actually worked at the EPA in DC in 1997 and thought I was going to be a policy person, and ended up moving to Seattle and kind of started working in philanthropy and fundraising, and ended up at Climate Solutions almost 15 years ago. So I've been working on this for 25 years, which is now more than half my life. And climate change is the biggest social justice issue of our lifetime, so that's why I'm working on it.
That was early, 15 years to start on climate. A lot of people didn't even recognize it was something. Was there something personal or specific that happened for you, or was it just something you always was ingrained in you based on your upbringing?
Just really ingrained in me, and then also just seeing the impacts in BIPOC communities and low-income communities, and where I was born. So.
Yeah, we were just talking backstage about a session I did last night and we had Rev Lennox Yearwood on from Hip Hop Caucus, and the stories he was sharing about how the storytelling from oil and gas has, basically changed the narrative of what has happened to BIPOC communities and lower income communities and how they are affected. I think that probably motivates a lot of us. Lauren, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, just like you, my mom is my climate icon, my climate queen. And so she raised my sisters and I with a lot of strong connection to land principles in the home. When she taught us how to compost, she would say, let's go feed the earth. And so just a lot of strong influence like that in the home. And then as much as I wish I was a youth climate activist, like so many of my friends are, or were when they started when they were 12 or 13, it was 2016 that woke me up. And offshore oil drilling became a really hot topic all around the country, but also in LA. And I grew up by the beach. I swim and surf and just have so much respect and reverence for the ocean. I always say I've contributed to the volume of the sea with my tears, because I go there as a place to cry and to grieve and just to heal. And so anyways, I joined the Surfrider Foundation because their campaign that caught my eye was Drilling is Killing, in a response to Trump's threat to drill for offshore oil drilling around the coast. And so I joined in 2016 and haven't looked back. Yeah.
Wow. Ben?
Yeah, similarly, it feels like this has been a part of my life since very early on. Thank you. In case you can't tell, I have a tendency to talk with my hands, which when I have a handheld mic doesn't always work out that well. It's always been a part of what has been important to me. I come specifically to this work through food and agriculture, which we all eat, and it is one of the biggest ways that we impact our world, our climate, and so the ability to engage with climate through food and community initiatives is something that's very important to me.
Paulina?
For me, as also an immigrant from Ecuador, I have always been engaged with human rights issues. And when I came to the United States, I thought, what an example I want to set up for Ecuador, not realizing that there is so many disparities here and injustices. So I started to get involved in the community where I live and where I work. And just trying to break the gap of those 13 years of life expectancy difference that exists within Seattle, knowing that Seattle is such a beautiful, environmental, green city, but yet still so many of those injustices that are impacting the youth, the children that live around me. And so that keeps me going, and that keeps me motivated to continue doing these intersections and looking at intersections of environmental, and climate justice.
Amazing. So I want to turn to community a little bit, because obviously what we are doing here is building a community. What you all are doing is building communities in different areas. So can you talk a little bit, each of you, about and we can also jump around. I want to say, feel free to jump in if you have something you want to add. We don't have to go just down the line. About the power of community that you have seen and how it has helped you in your own personal work that you've been doing. Savitha, we can start with you. Jump in. Lauren, you want to go first? Lauren, you want to go
sorry,
first?
Yeah. I think I saw a tweet or a meme or something earlier last year, and it said, stop asking your president to abolish fossil fuels and ask your mayor for better public transportation. And I feel like that's the shift in, especially young people. I talk to a lot of young people, majority young people online. And I think there's this epidemic of loneliness with young people we're seeing too, because so many of them had to go to school online and miss the essential interpersonal connections that exist when we gather in person like this. And so community building, I think, is restoring that necessary component of us meeting in person and seeing each other eye to eye and asking, what do you need? How can I help? And this is what I'm good at. And so I think what I've observed, I guess, in the past few years is this shift in hyper-local community and advocacy, and saying we are the experts of our community and what we are being impacted by, and we can see things move much faster on a local scale than on a federal scale. I think that's where we feel the most defeat, is when we're screaming for things to pass on a federal level and they still don't, right? 4 million young people asked the Biden administration not to pass Project Willow, and it was such a defeat when it was signed on. And so I think, honestly, it was probably that, when I said, okay, well then, if this is the type of defeat we're gonna see, we have to organize locally, because we are the experts of Los Angeles. So what is it that we're seeing on a day-to-day? What do we need, and how can we help? And I think a lot of the conversations have ended in the festival of well, what can we do? What can individuals do? And my number one recommendation to anyone who says, I'm ready, I'm hungry, I want to take action, what do I do? I'm like, go find your local community group, because they just need your hands and they need your help. But there are elders or attorneys or lobbyists or whoever in these environmental organizations, communities, who just need your hands, So I think it's essential and crucial, and we're so much stronger when we're together. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also with the climate movement, my feeling is I just feel better when I'm around other people that are working towards the same goal, because you can get as you mentioned, when you're looking at the federal level, sometimes you can get a little bit defeated. So we all need each other. Paulina, do you want to go in next?
I would say, like we always run by our organization, and shout out to my staff who is over there. We can't do anything without community. So we always have a saying, nothing about us should be without us. So as we are planning and doing policy work, and as we are doing, all these climate plans, only the community owns the truth, and we know the realities and the impacts that we see every day. So I really want to give, the highlight of the importance of every time, even though it takes a little more work to engage, to translate, to translate data. I'm not talking just about language, but data, and to bring the stories, to validate those voices, to encourage the youth to be part of community participatory research. I think all those things, if we couldn't involve the people that are really impacted, then we're not going to have the results that we want, because relevancy won't be there. So always centering those who are mostly impacted, and that happens to be, of course, environmental racism. It's a reality, so it happens to be BIPOC community.
Yeah. Ben, I just noticed your green socks, by the way. I like that. That's very on brand over there. Do you have anything you want to add, Ben? No? You want to speak?
Sure. And I would just say, community to me also means coalition. Like throughout the last few days here at this conference, there were so many partners or just like longtime friends of Paulina and I realized we've known each other for 20 years. We're but we're only 25, so.
How'd that happen?
But just the importance of so many of our organizations working together, whether that was the Power Past Coal campaign to stop coal trains here in the Northwest, or Yes on 1631 and No on 2117 that has over 300 grassroots and mainstream organizations involved, that it's so important for us to be doing work collectively as a movement.
I just want to add, it's important too, as Savitha reminded me, 20 years ago, we were talking with environmental justice when nobody really was talking about it. And big shout out to Lily Ayala, who's here too. And yay, she's our ally, amazing leader too.
And she has been so integral to the festival and been such an amazing partner over the last year. We could not thank you enough. So thank you for everything.
Yeah, so now having allies in the city, in the government, policy, and academic institutions is part of how we need to keep on moving and bringing the community to the center with all these partners and bringing the right moves into the change.
Yeah. So moving towards solutions a bit. I think we have come really far, as we've mentioned, probably since you've been working on this the past 15 years. I know that I have seen, at the very beginning, nobody really was talking about it. Now I think everybody is talking about it and seeing the impacts of climate change. You actually had a quick story I think I would love for you to share on stage, just that happened recently, is just on the impacts of, before we get into solutions, if you want to share that, yeah.
Sure. So some of you know that I go to Mexico a lot. Tulum is a home away from home for me for the last 15 years, and I was there last Friday morning at 6:13 a.m. local time when Hurricane Beryl hit and made landfall just a few kilometers away from where my friends and I were in their home. And it was terrifying to experience my first hurricane and also to experience it in the pitch black. Beryl is the first earliest Category 5 hurricane on record, the most easternmost hurricane that has started on record. It went down to a Cat 2 and then increased back up to a Category 3 in the middle of the night because of how hot the water was in the Atlantic. And then when it went through the Yucatan, it heated up again over the Gulf of Mexico, which is one of the reasons that Houston and Texas, other places in Texas, were so impacted by it. But just the fact that we've had a heat wave in Seattle, it is normal now to plan summer vacations in the Northwest around the smoke. When is the wildfire season going to happen? It's just, the fact that we're all living through these impacts in our generation, right? And 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 2020 seems so far away with some of our goals with Kyoto and other, international agreements. And now it's here, and we have this very brief moment of time that we can stop things from becoming worse, right? We can focus on solutions and other policy changes to make things better, especially for the kids who are here today and the future generations. So.
Yeah, and where I wanted to kind of go from that too was onto solutions. Like, what do you all feel like right now is what is missing that you need the absolute most to help move the needle forward on the work that you're doing, based on that? And I can see you all thinking a little bit, so I'll wait until somebody wants to jump in and feels like that you have an answer on what you feel like you need right now.
I just want to say, we need to acknowledge cumulative impacts when we talk about, climate. And our community already also went through big flooding a couple of years ago. Something that was expected to happen in 15 years already happened right now. And so when we think about everything that was impacting our 40 families there, with the lack of infrastructure and with the lack of investment for years, was a reality. So I think going in terms of the solution, obviously going alongside with bringing community to the center, defining, sometimes it's not related. We have to acknowledge the intersections, and that's what is important, to bring all those solutions that are bringing and putting them all together cumulatively. So for communities that are exposed to air pollution, for Superfund sites, exposed to many lack of green spaces, lack of tree canopy, huge asthma rates. That's what our community looks like, and we check in every single box. But the solution couldn't come unless it's community center and the right investment. Now that we have heard, with President Biden bringing all the Justice 40 acknowledgement, and finally environmental justice being in legislation, being at the White House, and all these, we still see all these injustices and discrepancies and the lack of investment. So we need to continue pushing for community-based organizations, for community to own this funding and policy change. That's, to me, the bottom line. The policy needs to be updated. What it was the usual is not working for us anymore. So we have to break all those barriers and just think outside of the box to change climate.
Absolutely. Laura?
I feel like it's just political will. I know a lot of the presentations this week have been about that too. Like, we are all experts in our community, and I'm sure we all spend a lot of time speaking to elected officials as community members, saying we're seeing this on a day-to-day. Like, something that we face a lot in Los Angeles is dirty water. All of our storm drains take all of the toxic runoff from the city straight to the beach. People get really sick. There's no notices. People are fishing in this water, swimming in this water, surfing, everything. And there's no plan to keep the water clean. Or there's no redirection of the storm water to keep the oceans clean. And then not to mention the harm on wildlife in the ocean as well. And so when we're speaking to elected officials in LA or in Sacramento, we're like, hey, we're seeing this every day. This is our every day. These are the places we come to recreate or fish. We depend on the coast. And there's a disconnect too, where it feels like it shouldn't be this difficult for representatives to understand the impact in their district. I was lobbying earlier this year, speaking to the DC office of my LA representative, and the staffer and granted, the staff, bless the staffers, they're working so hard, but the representative spent like very little time in the district. And I'm like, what the heck? You're supposed to be my rep. Like, why am I? Come on, this is also your district too. So I think it's not the community organizers get it. We are we're the experts here. It's just the political will of the people who are supposed to be representing us to implement the policy and ideally legislation to protect these places.
A follow-up question for you. So all of your content is incredible online. You do a really good job at having, conversations with yourself.
Yeah.
Would you say, or how could you convince some of those leaders to focus on this a little bit more and make sure that it is a priority because they're not paying attention? What would you say to them to get them to do that?
Something we tell a lot for like new lobbyists. We are so fortunate that we get so many opportunities within Surfrider, and like you had said, coalition building of several different plastic pollution or ocean conservation orgs. We band together and have like California Ocean Day, where we all collectively go to Sacramento, and it's so inspiring. And what we always tell people is tell your story, because there are in-house lobbyists who will give them all of the facts about the pollution, about the air quality and all these things, and it's not shifting. But when a young person comes and says, I didn't grow up by the beach, and the first time I went to the beach, I saw it completely littered, or like, we don't go to the beach because parking is really expensive, and I've never seen myself as, like, I never saw the beach as a place that was accessible to me. And when they're sharing these stories, something changes, or like when they're showing photos, something changes. And so witnessing that, I've noticed that, and it's what we were saying last night in your panel too, about storytelling. Like, that is what will ultimately influence change, is when people are sharing story. And so when they listen, if they listen and as they listen, I would continue to tell or lead with story first.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Ben, anything you want to add?
Yeah, so this may take a second, so bear with me for it. But I think one of the things that's really important to keep in mind about, like, when we talk about work as community-based, and Paulina spoke to it about what it means to actually do this work in a way that engages communities, where communities are part of this process, is it doesn't happen quickly. It doesn't happen overnight. It is based on trust. It is based on consistency and showing up and being part of that community. And that is very, very challenging in our current, like, nonprofit staffing and organizational structure. And we have this pervasive and pernicious idea that nonprofits should be measured on how efficient they are and how little their overhead costs are. And this type of work is particularly challenging to do with those sort of constraints from funders. Funders want to see innovative, unique work happening all the time. And that's not how this work happens, and it's not how this work gets sustained, and it creates a whole host of downstream problems where what we're effectively doing is we're telling nonprofits, you have to do more with less, and realistically, the only way we can figure out how to do more with less is to pay people less, because that's all the inherent biggest cost in doing this work, and people need to get paid. They need to get paid a livable wage, and so often the undercurrent of this work is you should be doing this work because you're committed to the cause, and so if you're down for the cause, you should be down for getting underpaid, which that if we can't pay our people, if we can't value the people who do this work to the level that they need to be valued, or to achieve the mission of the organization, then what's the point? Like, it is inherently flawed. And so my solution is, for those of you who are funders or donors, or you're looking at nonprofits, yes, we want them to be efficient. We don't want, whether it's government or donor resources, to just go, to be used poorly. But that seems to be one of the major tools that is used to evaluate nonprofit success. And I would suggest rethinking that. Think about, is this nonprofit engaged in the community that they suggest that they are working in? Are they engaged with frontline communities? Learn more about the nonprofit. Learn, do your work instead of putting the onus on them and expecting them to do all of the work to meet your requirements. There.
General support, multi-year support, unrestricted funding. We are only as strong as our people at our organizations. And just to lift up what Ben said, we need to be paying us just as competitively as any other company on the planet, or any other corporation that's here. So, thank you.
Anything else you want to add?
I echo everything. And when we talk about the funding that is federal coming, the burdensome applications and the burdensome ways that the people expect for community to get this money, it's just unbelievable. So we need our foundations, we need our partners here, business partners, to be there for community and provide that unrestricted funding so we can allow for more of the work the way that we see it functioning, possibly to make those changes needed.
So I'm going to end on a question about the future. What are you either most focused on, most optimistic about, and what are you kind of hopeful for after this festival, after we've put this on?
Well, I grabbed the I pledge to remain optimistic little button inside, and I'm working on an op-ed, and just wanted to kind of summarize the ending of despair calls us to retreat and does the dirty work of handing victory to our opponents. Hope asks, what if we win? And then demands that we go out and make it happen. So that is what I am committed to.
Ooh. I love that. My friends at Intersectional Environmentalists lead a workshop about radical imagination. And I think it's so crucial because we're always thinking of what's not working. We could look at photos of wildfires or pollution in the air nonstop. Exactly what you said. And so when I did this radical imagination exercise, I saw like fruit trees on my street, and I was picking fruit and I was sharing it with my neighbors, and there weren't cars on the road because there were bike lanes and walking lanes, and there was clean air, and I could run in the summertime and it wasn't too hot. And I think of all the things that I want just for my own livelihood and like for my friends, my family, my community. And I have to remember that too, of like, this is what does it look like? What does it taste like? What does it feel like? And how can we like bring that into the present, you know? And I think it's important in our work too to remember, like, what is the future you're fighting for? What does it look like?
Yeah, Shia Bastida told me an interesting story which resonated with me, which was that she started her work because of the negative and the disasters and the, you know, what she was seeing in her community, and she stayed because of her connection to nature, and so reframing it to the positive, I think, is an amazing way to shift that storytelling and that narrative that we were talking about. Yeah, Ben.
Yeah, I'm optimistic that because I think when you're in the middle of a story, it's hard to know what the conclusion is, and change often is this like process that looks slow, and then sometimes it happens very, very quickly. And I'm optimistic that some of these things where we feel like we feel like we may be,
Paulina, you're doing my job. I love it.
Right? Banging our head against a wall, and that feels like we're not making progress. What maybe we don't recognize is that there's a crack developing in that wall, and the next time we bang our head against that very same wall, it's ready to crumble. And that's what keeps me optimistic.
Well, I have great news for solutions, and the future is not that difficult. I think center human health. I think that's what is important as we are looking into these impacts. How do we uplift those voices that they haven't been uplifted? Those voices that are sick, that their lungs are full of lead, chromium, the kids are sick with asthma. That is one. The other one is go along and provide infrastructure, the money, the resources, the capacities for those communities that don't have, so they have the solutions. And the third one is, it's beautiful to think about conservation. It's wonderful to talk about environment, but it's more important to talk about people. And if we are not here, why are we doing all this? So focus on the youth, bring them to the center, focus on what they are needing to understand to make the changes, because they're going to be the ones, hopefully, to make that. So acknowledge that and give that, acknowledge the power that they already have.
Amazing. Thank you all so much for your time this morning. Really appreciate it. We're going to take a quick break, and then we have something fun for everyone that's going to bring science and improv together. So please stay tuned. That will be up next. Thank you so much.